What's up guys, welcome back to DCA. So what we're going to do in today's video is work on building a practical and realistic price model for Solana in the upcoming market cycle. So how often do you see a price prediction where someone says a number, saying where they think it's going to go to in the market cycle that never comes to fruition? You always see the price fall orders of magnitude short of whatever the price prediction actually is. So we are going to build a model for assessing the price of Solana, and we could apply this to other assets as well. We're going to build a model which is going to give you a framework for not necessarily predicting where the price will go, but it will give you a realistic perspective of what you could easily see the price do in the next market cycle. So let's go ahead and get started with that. So first things first, in order to make an assessment on where Solana may get to in the next market cycle, we need to lay the groundwork for how we're going to do this. So the first thing I want to show you is this, and you'll have to bear with me. This is all related to what we're doing with relation to the price model of Solana. But this is a logarithmic regression curve that I've released for Bitcoin. The way that TradingView works essentially is when you release a script, the script gives you a snapshot of the day where you released it. So you can see that I released this model on around January 20th or so of 2022. So the price of Bitcoin was still back at around 40K at the time. And the way that this works, this logarithmic regression curve works, I'm not going to go into this because this isn't a Bitcoin video, but this lower band shows where the price is expected to go towards the bottom of the market cycle, right? And the upper band is where it expects it to go as a cycle heats up and goes into a bull market. One last thing I want to point out, if you're interested in this script or many others like that I've released, it's available on the Discord channel. If you head over there, you can sign up for all of my various scripts by heading to the Discord channel. Okay, there's a link to that in the description below. Now here is that same script live. Right, so remember it was released back here when the price was around 40K. The price of Bitcoin was around 40K. Notice where the price went to at the bottom of the market cycle. It went exactly to the lower predicted level of this market cycle, right? So, this model was within a couple $100 of where the price actually went to. So in that sense, it's been a very good model to use during this market cycle. And remember, it was released back here in January of 2022. So the way this works then, in this particular script, you can actually predict forward. So its default is set to predict forward 250 days, right? So 250 days would put us out in the middle of 2024. But let's just say that this market cycle kind of plays out like prior market cycles have. We don't know exactly when a bull market peak is going to occur at, but we can estimate by looking at prior market cycles. To say that 2025 is when the next market cycle may occur is a fair estimate based on prior market cycles. Now, it may happen much sooner than that. It may happen much later than that. But, we are attempting to build a price model here, so we have to kind of come up with some values that we're going to use in our price model. If you come over here to the log regression curve script, you can set how many days into the future you'd like to look. Let's just say 1,000 days into the future. So it's going to create the extension for us here. And then you can just look and see, well, what is the bottom level where the price may be at in Q1 of 2025? And it predicts 40K is where, if we were in the middle of a bear market in 2025, it expects that that level at around 40K is where the low price for Bitcoin would be. Now, what we're going to do then in this video is, like we said, we're going to assume that the next bull market happens in Q1 of 2025. That's kind of where we hit our cycle peak. Like I said, it could be much further, it could be much sooner, but we have to come up with a number. So that's what we're going to use. And we're going to be conservative in this video. We're not going to use this highest level as our price prediction for Bitcoin. We are going to use this level right here. Around 130K is the price where it predicts where Bitcoin will hit in the next bull run. So it's a conservative estimate. We could easily predict that the price for Bitcoin might go much higher, but we're going to keep it conservative in this video. So how is that useful to us then? Well, remember that that's $130,000 per Bitcoin, but the supply of Bitcoin is constantly changing. So we need to take into account the supply of Bitcoin, where that might be in 2025, remember, of Q1 of 2025. And we need to take into account, what will the market cap be and why are we doing all this? So first of all, that gives us then, if we look at that in terms of the Bitcoin market cap, that gives us a number of around 2.7 trillion. So 2.65 trillion, right? In this cycle, you'll recall that we hit a peak market cap of just around $1.3 trillion. From there, we can then look at this. So this is the Solana Bitcoin ratio, right? So looking at the market cap of Solana in terms of the Bitcoin market cap. Now, why don't we look at the Solana price in relation to the Bitcoin price? And the reason for that is rather simple, and it's this. Let's take a look at where the Solana circulating supply was back in November of 2021. So you'll remember that back at this time, Solana was trading at around 200 bucks, right? Bitcoin at the time was trading at around 57K, and the circulating supply of Solana was 300 million, just north of 300 million. Let's take a look at where we're at now with the circulating supply. So Solana right now trading at 57 bucks, Bitcoin's at 37K, 38K, right in that zone. The circulating supply of Solana is sitting at 423 million. So a nearly 50% increase, not quite 50%, but close to it, 50% increase in the supply of Solana. All right. Now, one of the key points to make here is that its supply inflation rate has significantly decreased. Not as many tokens are hitting the market as were in the past, because a lot of these unlocks have already played out. Okay. So that's just something to keep in mind. So we're going to look at the Solana to Bitcoin ratio in that case. And the reason for that is looking at the market cap to market cap. As our supply expands, the market cap might stay the same, but the price is going to tend to decrease, all things considered equal. All right. So this allows us to kind of look at these two assets in relation to one another, regardless of what the price is doing. And what we can see is we hit up here. So Solana hit around 7% of the Bitcoin market cap in the last cycle. Now, what's the relevance of that to future cycles? Well, let's take a look at some altcoins that have kind of stuck around from cycle to cycle, right? Now, a lot of altcoins we know by looking back in the past kind of evaporate. They go to zero against Bitcoin essentially. Let's look at a couple altcoins that have kind of stuck around from market cycle to market cycle. And, there aren't a ton of examples of these, but a few of them are something like ADA Bitcoin. Now, regardless of what you think about Cardano, it doesn't matter. That's irrelevant to our discussion here. I'm just showing you examples of coins that have maintained positive price action from cycle to cycle. And based on everything we're seeing so far, Solana appears to be on track to perform well again. It appears that Solana still has sufficient interest. Okay. So I know a lot of people have these, thoughts in their head about Cardano, and that kind of shuts their mind off and they can't think about what we're doing here anymore. It's irrelevant. You could call ADA anything here. It doesn't matter. The point is that we see that a lot of altcoins tend to kind of cap out at some particular resistance level against Bitcoin. So we have Cardano that kind of capped out around this 0.1 level. And again, in this market cycle, so this is all the way back in 2018. And then in this market cycle, again, we kind of capped out at this 0.1, 0.11 market cap of Cardano versus Bitcoin, right? Come look at Ethereum, same thing. We consistently get right to this 0.5 up to around 0.6 level. And that's kind of where we cap out. Now, you can see maybe for 2 or 3 days here, we got above this for a very, very short amount of time back in 2018. But this tends to be right around where we hit resistance. So you can see in last cycle, 1, 2, 3 separate times. In this cycle, 1 almost right here, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times almost that we've got right up to that 0.5 level. So this is a pattern that these coins tend to follow. So we can at minimum then start to make some predictions about what Solana might be able to do. And we can give it a bit of a range, right? We don't need to say, de facto that it has to do that again, but we can say that, we know that all things being equal, a lot of these altcoins tend to approach some particular resistance level against the price of Bitcoin. That is where they tend to hit during more bullish times in the market. Now, remember, this doesn't hold true for bearish times in the market. And why is that? And that's because Bitcoin tends to just, absolutely annihilate these coins in bear markets. The price of Bitcoin holds up much better. And especially when you look at market cap, the market cap of Bitcoin holds up much better than a lot of these altcoins do in the bear market. But in the bull market, we tend to see that that's when the altcoins start to perform well, and they tend to form these resistance levels. So Solana gives us at least a starting point that we can work with then, and we can start to create a price model. So we see that we know that Solana hit around this 7% market cap against Bitcoin in the prior cycle, right? And now we're going to create a range, because we never want to say that, 7% is definitively where we're going to get to again, this 0.07 level. Maybe we do better. Maybe Cardano starts to lose some of its momentum because maybe the network hasn't fulfilled a lot of its promises. So maybe you start to see Solana eat into some of that market cap. We don't know necessarily what narratives will drive a price into more bullish levels. Maybe Solana just, starts to gain more and more traction, and because of its attractive low fee rates, gets used more often. Maybe they solve some of their network outage issues and it starts to get used more often. And because of narratives, we all know that narratives drive the price of cryptocurrencies. That drives it above this 0.07 level. Conversely, maybe something like Aptos starts to eat into Solana. Maybe something like, network outages start to harm Solana. Maybe they don't have those under control yet. Maybe a hack happens. You never know. So we're not going to come down hard and say it has to be this 0.07 level. So this allows us to come up with a framework for assessing what is a peak potential against Bitcoin in the peak of a next bull run. All right. So we have these numbers in place. So all the way down to a 0.05 against Bitcoin, all the way up to a 0.09. So what can we do with that then? So all of these are reasonable, and I think you could come up with a logical cause of any of these scenarios happening. And it's why I think it's dangerous to give specific price predictions in the crypto market, because there's just simply too much speculation and too much narrative that can drive a price much higher or much lower, right? In a number of different situations. All right, so that allows us to then come up with an estimated Solana to Bitcoin price. And now remember, that's these values here, and that corresponds to these values right here. Okay. And remember, we said all the way back here that we're using that $130,000 Bitcoin as our base kind of bull market peak for Bitcoin in the next market cycle, which corresponds to a $2.65 trillion Bitcoin market cap. So we can then say, well, if the Bitcoin market cap hits $2.65 trillion like we have here, and we come back to this peak level of around 0.07, what market cap for Solana would that give us? And that would give us a $186 billion market cap for Solana. So all we're doing is, using that. And so we're using these two base values that we said. So that's $186 billion. And we'll get to how this relates to the price in a minute. But we should spend a few seconds talking about this and understanding what the potential is based on what we're seeing here. So, and we can just come over to the Solana market cap. So now we're just looking at Solana in terms of price. So if Solana hit that 0.07 level and Bitcoin hit that $2.65 trillion market cap level, that would give us the expected market cap, like we said, of around right here, right around $187 billion. All right. Now, if, it doesn't take a whole lot then to see how we could potentially significantly overperform that. Because, if we came to this level, back to this 0.07 level, that gives us a $186 billion market cap. What if we got up to the 0.9 level? Well, that would put us all the way at around $240 billion, right? That would put us right around there. And, you can just see then, we're not using these ridiculous numbers. We're not using, we're not saying like $1 million Bitcoin. We're not saying that, oh, we're going to eat all of the market or all of the market share of Ethereum. We're not making any ridiculous claims like that. We're saying that if Solana just happens to perform as well as it did last market cycle, which is not ridiculous. You see it happen time and time again. I mean, you saw it happen with Cardano, and Cardano didn't even have a functioning product, right, for the majority of last market cycle. You've seen it happen with Ethereum, where it hits up to this resistance zone. So it's not like we're making any extraordinary claims here. We're simply looking at if Solana, and this is our base case, if Solana performs at a reasonable level, like it did in the last market cycle, and if Bitcoin reaches up to a price of around 130,000. Now, we also have, let's say Bitcoin doesn't hit up to 130,000. What if it only gets to 90,000, which is what a $2 trillion market cap would be? Well, then you're looking at maybe a $140 billion market cap. So something farther down the list, right around here. All right. So it becomes very reasonable then to say, well, maybe Bitcoin does significantly better than 130,000. And why do we keep talking about Bitcoin? And it's what I said. Bitcoin drives this market, right? Bitcoin's not hitting resistance levels around the altcoins. The altcoins are hitting resistance levels around Bitcoin. So whatever Bitcoin does, right? However well Bitcoin does, that's where Solana tends to meet its resistance at, right? Against Bitcoin, because there's only so much money coming into the market. It's very reasonable then to look at this part of the matrix here. And so we're talking about this 0.06 to 0.08, and then Bitcoin hitting anywhere from a price of around 90K up to around 200K. I think that's a very, it's obviously a very broad range for the price to fall, but it's a very realistic range. So at a peak level, getting all the way up to 200K versus, only going, maybe 20K above where we went to in the last market cycle. So I think that's reasonable to say that's a more bearish case and a more bullish case. And then in the same vein, Solana, underperforming where we did in last market cycle to slightly overperforming it. So we're not making any extraordinary claims here. Okay. So then what we can do and what we have to do is come back to this for a moment, and we need to estimate where our circulating supply is going to be in Q1 of 2025. And so we can just use this unlock schedule to come up with that number and then divide by the market cap, and that will give us a price matrix. And that's exactly what we'll do here. So what we can see now is, given all of that, we can take the base case that Bitcoin hits this part of the logarithmic regression curve, hits around 130K, a conservative number by, most estimates, that's a pretty conservative number. And that Solana simply performs at the same level it did in this market cycle in terms of its market cap to Bitcoin. And so what does that give us? Well, that level would give us a price of $390 per Solana. So in other words, that's right around nearly a 7 to 8x from where we're sitting at right now. All right. Even in the more bearish scenario where Bitcoin doesn't perform as well and Solana underperforms where it did in the last cycle, that still gives you a nearly 5x from where we're sitting right now, right, at $250. Now, if Bitcoin were to perform at the same level, but let's say Solana overperformed, well, now you're looking at a price of up to $500 all the way to around $450. And if we underperformed, you're still looking at around $280. So we're not coming up with a specific number here. We're not saying that, hey, this is where Solana has to get to. This is exactly what has to happen. But this gives you a way to assess your beliefs about the market, what you think will actually happen. Will Bitcoin severely underperform where we've been in this cycle? You know, is the crypto market not going to perform overall as well as we did in this market cycle? Or am I, to say 130K, am I being wildly bearish on the market? All we're doing here then is coming up with a way for you to assess based on your beliefs about the market and come up with a realistic expectation, because you hear these numbers that have no bearing in reality whatsoever. They're so far gone beyond anything that's even possible that it becomes, extraordinarily unrealistic, right? And you can also use this in bear markets. If let's suppose that $57 was a local high and we came crashing back down and we got all the way down to $5. And then even in your most bearish scenarios you can come up with where Bitcoin only gets back to its prior all-time high. Bitcoin only goes back to this around $1.3 trillion level. And Solana significantly underperforms, right? Solana only gets to 0.05. So well below, coming back to this, well below where it got to last cycle. In fact, this would kind of be like a resistance level right here. Okay. If that happened and Solana were back down at maybe $10, well, you might be expecting at worst, in a worst case scenario, a 14x from there, right? Or if we continued on this rally and we got up to $100, and you're wondering, well, is it a good time to be buying Solana or not? You could look and estimate based on what your expectations are about this market cycle and say, well, we're at $100. I'm expecting Bitcoin to go to around 150K or so. So this $2.65 trillion estimate for Bitcoin is probably more or less reasonable. And I'm expecting Solana probably to do about as well as it did last cycle. So you might be expecting around a $400 Solana, then a 4x from wherever that's at. So remember, we're talking about market peaks here. That's one thing you have to keep in mind. We're talking about peak price levels. And as we know, these peak price levels tend to come and go very quickly. So this is in my opinion, reasonable framework for assessing where the price is at and where you think it might be going to. As long as you have some thoughts about the market, where it might get to, and whether, people are being way overly bullish or way bearish, you could use a matrix like this then to come up with a reasonable approach to the market. And even if you don't nail it precisely, this is at least giving you some type of framework that you can confidently say, it's very likely the price is going to fall in this zone somewhere. So if things are looking, let's say we're a year and a half down the road and we're in a bull market, but it's not that type of 2021 bull market where, just tons of money is flowing into the market, maybe because of the Fed, or maybe, whatever scenario may be playing out. Maybe the stock market's not doing that well, but the crypto market is still doing well. Well, maybe you stay in this 0.07 zone, but you start to slide up this way and say, yeah, I think Solana is going to do fine, but I don't think the crypto market as a whole is going to do fine. That maybe slides you this way. Or maybe we're doing much better and you still believe, hey, Solana is probably going to do as well as it did last cycle, but I don't think it's going to wildly overperform or underperform, but the crypto market's doing wonderful. Well, then maybe you slide down this way. And so, the sentiment regarding Solana doesn't have to change one way or the other. It allows you to anticipate what might happen given the economic situation or given situations related to Solana itself. So in other words, if you think everything is status quo with relation to Solana, the market isn't doing as well, then you kind of stay in this 0.07 zone, but you go this way. But if maybe the market's doing great, but Solana's not doing great, then you maybe go this way, right? And same thing. The market is doing just about where you expected at around that 130K level for Bitcoin, but Solana has all this good news coming out about it. Then you slide to the right. So it allows you to assess the price of Solana with relation to how bearish or bullish the actual market itself is. And remember, this is for bull markets. You can't use this in a bear market, because bear markets, you just tend to get annihilated by Bitcoin, right? And if you don't believe me, go pull up the chart of anything compared to Bitcoin. Type in anything over Bitcoin, and 95% of the time you're going to see it's getting outperformed, right? So this is a matrix which allows you to consider how well you think A, Solana is going to do, and then B, the crypto market in general. And it gives you a framework for making that assessment. Personally, this is kind of the level that I'm using as my base case, this 390. I think Bitcoin probably gets to somewhere, plus or minus right in that zone. And I think Solana is probably going to have another decent market cycle. So I'm expecting another run from eventually where we're sitting at right now at around 56, 57 bucks, all the way up to eventually around 400 bucks. That's my base case. I'm willing to change my mind if various new pieces of news come out, as things happen. I'm definitely not coming down hard on this number. It's not like I'm making a prediction about it, but that is my current belief about this market. And that's kind of how I'm viewing the asset. It's how I assess every asset that I look at. So with that said, guys, that's going to be it for this one. If you guys haven't checked it out yet, we have a number of different risk metrics for Solana and most of the top altcoins, as well as Bitcoin, on our new site that we've launched, polaritydigital.io. I suggest you head over there and check it out. And, with that said, until next time, as usual, see you.